If you're looking to buy a block of land, regardless if it's for your next home, your dream home, or even just a development, today's video will focus on the key criteria you need to understand to basically be able to purchase the best block of land possible for you. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tomic. I'm a registered architect here in Western Australia. And today is a very, very special video. Not only are we filming in a brand new set with two brand new computers behind me, we'll get to that later, we're also filming on a Wednesday. So moving forward, we're going to be producing two videos a week, one on Monday, one on Wednesday. And these Wednesday videos are going to be a little bit more of a general knowledge information from my background as an architect and how I can help you to be able to better yourselves in that sector. So if you're looking for anything architecture related, this video every single Wednesday is exactly where you're going to find it. So in today's video, we're talking about buying land, and we're talking about buying land specifically in Australia, but it is transferable across the world because the principles are very much the same. So when you're looking to buy your block of land, obviously the first thing you want to be looking at is your actual budget. Your budget is going to define which piece of land you can buy and which piece of land you can't buy. It's very, very simple, and it doesn't really matter what block of land you're looking at. That is going to be the number one critical factor that changes everything and will sway you to one block potentially over another. However, when we take out the factor of any sort of budget constraints, we can actually talk about the fundamental architectural principles that you really should be looking out for and looking into to be able to purchase the best block of land, to be able to build the best possible thing on that bit of land. So let's start with the solar orientation. Solar orientation, basically in Australia, you want to be looking for a block of land that is elongated in such a way that the north side is on the longest side. Now, because a lot of properties in Australia are very long and skinny, that means you want to be basically looking at a block of land that faces the longest length to north so that your living areas can be proportioned on the north side. This basically allows you to heat up your whole living spaces throughout the day, naturally using the sun, and keep your southern side for your private sleeping quarters, which are generally designed to be in a cooler climate and a cooler condition compared to the living space, so you can basically sleep a lot more comfortably at nighttime. If you can find a block of land that is perfectly positioned with the long side facing north, this is the first thing that you can tick off the list. Now, when you found the block of land, you want to also make sure there's no restrictions on that block of land. So as an example, on this block of land that I'm sitting on right now, there's a 4.5 meter easement to the back of the property for all sewer services, which basically means I can't build anything over those last 4.5 meters except grass, bricks, and maybe some sort of paving, anything that isn't permanent and can be simply removed upon request. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you're probably either looking at building your first residential home or your next residential home. Most people looking to build their dream residential home have already built a few, so they know what's going on. In Australia, if you're looking to purchase your first block of land, there's a lot of things that are continuous across the board, and you really, really want to make sure you're aware of before you commit to any block of land. So the prime example, blocks of land go up for sale in Australia all the time. However, what they don't tell you is that every block of land is subject to the R codes, the residential codes of either Western Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, or whatever state you fall under. Most likely these residential codes are applicable all over the world, so it is still applicable to anybody around the world watching this video. One thing to keep in mind is the fact that a block of land, zoned R40 as an example, has certain restrictions of how close you can build to the boundary. You can't go ahead and build boundary to boundary on all four corners and just take up 100% of that land. Most of the time, you either have to have a certain amount of outdoor living space, which cuts it down to 40% of usable or 60% unusable land, depending which way you want to look at it. It also cuts down how close to the boundary you can be at any given time and how far back from the street you have to be. So imagine you bought a block of land 10 meters wide, 20 meters long, and all of a sudden you have to come in 2 meters from both sides and get pushed back 6 meters from the street. You now have a 14 meter wide block by a 6 meter wide block that you can effectively build on. This is something you really, really want to take into consideration before you make any commitments, because if you can't fit your dream home or your next home in those restrictions that are already presented to you, you might be in trouble. An easement or any sort of restriction isn't the be all end all. It is just something that you want to be aware of at the very, very start, rather than finding out halfway through the process when you start the discussion with your architect and they flag a big 5-meter easement at the back of your property and say, oh, sorry, you've just lost 10% of your land that you paid X amount of dollars for. On top of that, if you're buying a block of land off the plan and have no idea what it's going to look like sight unseen, you want to read that plan or the developer's marketing plan as best as you possibly can. There's a couple of things to watch out for. First of all, you want to watch out for any story limits. If you want to build a 2-story, 3-story, or even more story house, be sure you can do that on that block of land in that area. There are some blocks that are zoned specifically for 1-story, single-story residence. Some must be 2-story, which means you're spending even more money that you may not be prepared for, or they could have a whole bunch of other restrictions. You also need to be very, very careful and very vigilant about the block you pick based on where the light poles are, the street trees are, the power dome is going to go, and potentially even where they might restrict you to put your garage. So if you're restricted to put your garage at the very back or the very right-hand side of the property, this might not work with what you're trying to achieve. So again, it is something that you have to be very vigilant about and very cautious of before you commit to purchasing any block of land and being caught out. The last thing I want to bring up is bushfire attack levels. Now, Australia has unfortunately been plagued with numerous bushfires over the last couple of years, increasing rapidly thanks to climate change. And it is something that we are all unfortunately going to have to live with the more and more life progresses. And the more and more we push out into the bush means we're getting closer and closer to the bush. There are new regulations called BAL or bushfire attack level regulations that play a part in the overall block of land. Sometimes developers will subdivide a whole block of land into multiple little pieces, and some bits are right against that bush, which means is exactly what you're looking for, but it might also increase the construction cost, unfortunately for you, in the process. So there's a number of bushfire attack levels to be mindful of. First of all, BAL low or no BAL is the cheapest and most common that we are building to in Australia. BAL 12.5, BAL 19 and BAL 29 are all reasonably acceptable, with BAL 29 being the highest that we are generally allowed to build in unless there is absolutely no other option. And then we really get into the bushland and we get into the midst of it when we go to the BAL 40 and the BAL FZ, the BAL flame zone. Any of these blocks of lands will incur significantly higher construction costs than what you might be expecting, because they require a safety factor on them that is simply going to increase the cost of construction regardless of how you do it. There is no way to basically build a standard kit home directly in a flame zone and hope for the best. It won't be legally allowed. You're going to have to spend a significant amount of more money to be able to actually construct to those regulations. So if you're looking at an off the plan grid and you're looking at all of the properties available to you, some of them might be pinged as BAL low, BAL 29, BAL 40, or anything in between. You really want to be looking for the lowest BAL rating or no BAL rating at all if it is possible in your situation. Anyway, that's all from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below and don't forget about the like button. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I will answer as many as I possibly can.